The night the porch light stayed, on the first time my neighbor told me my wife was sneaking out, I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was impossible. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind that settles in quietly after a long day. The air in our suburban neighborhood carried that familiar mix of cut grass and distant barbecue smoke. Kids rode their bikes in slow circles, and porch lights flicked on one by one like a silent agreement that the day was done. I had just pulled into the driveway when I saw him, Tom Willis, mid-60s, retired, always watching everything from his front porch like the neighborhood was his personal TV show. He raised a hand when I stepped out of my car. "Evan," he called. I gave him a nod. "Hey, Tom." I was halfway to my front door when he said it. "You got a minute?" Something in his tone made me stop. Not urgent, but not casual either. I walked over, keys still in my hand. "What's up?" Tom shifted in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly like he was deciding how much to say. "You're a good guy," he started. That was the first red flag. Nobody starts a conversation like that unless something uncomfortable is coming next. I gave a small, uneasy smile. "Okay." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I'm only saying this because I'd want someone to tell me." My stomach tightened. "Tell you what?" He hesitated, then said it. "I've seen your wife leaving late at night." I blinked. "Leaving?" He nodded slowly. "Past midnight, a few times now." I let out a short breath, somewhere between a laugh and disbelief. "That's not possible." It came out too fast, too certain. Tom didn't argue, he just watched me. "I thought maybe I was mistaken at first," he said. Didn't want to jump to conclusions. I crossed my arms. "You probably were, because my wife Rachel wasn't the type to sneak out. She was predictable, steady. The kind of person who left notes on the fridge and texted if she was going to be 10 minutes late." "What time?" I asked, more out of politeness than belief. "Between 1 and 3, Tom replied. "Usually dressed dark. Moves quick." I shook my head. "She's home every night." Tom held my gaze. "Is she?" That question lingered longer than it should have. I forced a smile. "Yeah, she is." He leaned back, not pushing further. "All right," he said. "Like I said, just thought you should know." I nodded, turned, and walked back to my house. But something about the way he said it, calm, certain, not dramatic, it stuck. Inside, the house smelled like garlic and butter. Rachel. She was in the kitchen, humming softly, stirring something on the stove. She turned when she heard me. "Hey, you're home." Her smile was warm, familiar, safe. I kissed her on the cheek. "Hey." For a moment, everything felt normal again. "How was work?" she asked. "Busy," I said. "Same as always." She laughed lightly. "Someday you're going to say something different." I watched her as she moved around the kitchen. Effortless, comfortable. There was no sign of anything unusual. No tension, no guilt, nothing. "You all right?" she asked, catching me staring. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just tired." She nodded, turning back to the stove. "Dinner's almost ready." I should have dropped it right there. I should have trusted what I saw. But Tom's voice echoed in my head. "Is she?" That night, we went to bed around 11, like always. Rachel fell asleep quickly, her breathing steady beside me. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening, waiting. For what? I didn't even know. At 12:47 a.m., I checked the time. Still nothing. At 1018 a.m., I finally drifted off. When I woke up the next morning, she was still there, curled up beside me, peaceful. I almost laughed at myself. But something had changed, because now I was paying attention. The next few days, I started noticing small things I might have ignored before, like how she kept her phone face down more often, or how she'd sometimes step outside to take calls, or the way she seemed distracted. Not distant, just slightly off. Nothing concrete, nothing you could point to and say, "This is it," but enough to plant doubt. On Friday night, Tom caught me again. "You check?" he asked. I exhaled, already annoyed. "She's been home every night." Tom nodded slowly. "Then maybe I'm wrong." There was a pause. And then he added, "But I don't think I am." I stared at him, trying to decide if I was angry or scared. That night, I made a decision. I didn't confront her, didn't accuse, didn't even hint. I just pretended to sleep. At 12:32 a.m., I heard it, soft, careful. The sound of the bedroom door opening. My heart started pounding. I kept my eyes closed, barely breathing. Footsteps. Light, deliberate. Then silence. A few seconds later, the faint click of the front door. And just like that, she was gone. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Then I got up, walked to the window, pulled the curtain just enough to see. The street was quiet, empty. Except for one thing, a shadow moving at the end of the block. Her. Dressed in dark clothes, walking fast, not looking back. My chest tightened, not with anger, not yet, with something worse, confusion, because the question wasn't just what is she doing, it was, why didn't she tell me? I stood there for a long time, long after she disappeared, and in that moment, I realized something that scared me more than anything Tom had said. I didn't actually know what was happening in my own marriage anymore, and whatever the truth was, I had a feeling I wasn't ready for it. Following shadows, I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Not really. I lay back down before she returned, forcing my breathing to slow, my eyes to stay shut. When she slipped back into bed sometime after 2 a.m., she was careful, too careful, like someone who didn't want to wake me, or someone who didn't want to get caught. Her arm brushed mine as she settled in. Warm, familiar, and suddenly, unfamiliar. Effin. Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't move. Are you awake? I kept my breathing steady, slow, even. She waited a few seconds, then exhaled quietly and turned away. I stared into the darkness long after that, because now I knew two things for certain. Tom wasn't wrong, and Rachel was hiding something. The next morning, she acted normal. Too normal. She made coffee, played music in the kitchen, even joked about how I always forget to take the trash out on Fridays. You're quiet today, she said, leaning against the counter, mug in hand. Just tired, I replied. Same excuse, different weight. She studied me for a second, like she was searching for something. Then she smiled. Long week, huh? Yeah. There it was again, that slight pause. That moment where it felt like we were both pretending not to notice something. I wanted to ask. God, I wanted to ask, where did you go last night? Why didn't you tell me? Who were you with? But the words stayed stuck, because once you ask those questions, there's no going back. Instead, I said, I might work late tonight. It came out casually, like an afterthought. She nodded. Okay, too easily. That bothered me more than it should have. That evening, I didn't work late. I parked 2 streets away and walked back home just after midnight. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of stillness that makes every small sound feel louder than it is. I didn't turn on the porch light, didn't go inside. I waited. At 12:41 a.m., the front door opened. Rachel stepped out. Same as the night before. Dark hoodie, hair pulled back, moving fast. I watched from the shadows as she locked the door behind her. She didn't look around, didn't hesitate. She just walked. I gave her a few seconds, then followed. My heart pounded harder with every step. Not because I was afraid of being caught, but because I wasn't sure I wanted to know where she was going. She kept a steady pace, heading toward the main road. Not sneaking, not hiding, just deliberate. After about 5 minutes, she turned. Not toward the stores, not toward any place that made sense. She went toward the older part of the neighborhood, where the streetlights were fewer, dimmer. I slowed down, keeping my distance. Every shadow felt like cover. Every step felt louder than it should. Then she stopped. In front of a house. It was small, worn, the kind of place people passed without noticing. She walked up to the door, knocked twice, paused, then, once more, the door opened. A man stood there. My chest tightened instantly. I couldn't see him clearly, just his outline, taller than her, broad shoulders. They didn't hug, didn't speak long. She stepped inside, and the door closed, just like that. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what I had just seen, because everything in my mind was screaming one thing: she's cheating. It was the simplest explanation, the most obvious one, and yet something about it didn't feel right. There had been no hesitation, no nervousness, no secrecy in the way she approached the door. It didn't feel like an affair. It felt like routine. That thought unsettled me even more. I stayed there for a long time, staring at the house, waiting. Part of me wanted to storm up to that door, knock, demand answers. But another part, a quieter, more cautious part, held me back, because once I did that, everything would explode, and I wasn't ready for that, not yet. So I left. I walked back home alone, the same streets, the same silence, but everything felt different now. When I got inside, the house felt colder. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, trying to make sense of it. Hours later, I heard the door open, soft, careful. She came back the same way she left, quiet, controlled. I stayed still, listening. She paused in the hallway, like she was checking, then walked into the bedroom. A few seconds later, the bed dipped slightly, her presence beside me again. Good night, she whispered, like everything was normal, like nothing had happened. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come, because now the questions weren't vague anymore. They were sharp, clear, dangerous. Who was that man? Why was she going there? And why didn't it feel like what I thought it was? The next morning, I couldn't hold it in anymore. She was pouring coffee when I said it. Where were you last night? The words landed heavy between us. She froze, just for a second, then turned slowly. What? I met her eyes. No hesitation this time. I know you left, I said. Silence. Real silence. Not the kind we've been having all week. This one was thick, unavoidable. Her expression changed. Not panic, not guilt. Something else. Something. How long have you known? She asked quietly. That wasn't the response I expected. Since last night, I said, and I followed you. That landed. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like something had just shifted. You followed me, she repeated. I needed to know, I said. She looked away, then back at me. You weren't supposed to find out like this. My chest tightened. Find out what, Rachel? She hesitated. For the first time since this started, she looked afraid. Not of me, of the truth. I can't explain it like this, she said. Then how? I asked, my voice rising. Because right now, it looks like you're sneaking out in the middle of the night to see another man. That's not what it is, she said quickly. Then tell me what it is. She opened her mouth, then stopped. Tears filled her eyes. I need you to trust me. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. You don't get to ask for trust after this. That hit her. I saw it, but she didn't argue. Instead, she said something that made everything worse. If I tell you, it could change everything. I stared at her. Everything's already changed. Another pause. Longer, heavier. Then she whispered, I'm trying to help someone. That wasn't the answer I expected. Help someone, I repeated. She nodded. Who? Her lips parted. But no words came out. I can't tell you yet. And just like that, the tension snapped. Then I'm done asking, I said. Because whatever this was, whatever secret she was holding, it was big enough that she chose it over telling her husband the truth. And that thought, that realization, it hurt more than anything I'd seen that night. The truth she carried alone. I didn't leave the house that morning. I didn't slam doors or pack a bag or say anything dramatic. I just stayed. Sat at the kitchen table long after Rachel walked out of the room, long after the coffee went cold, long after the weight of everything settled into something I couldn't ignore anymore. She was hiding something. Not small, not harmless, something big enough to keep secrets, to leave in the middle of the night, to look me in the eye and ask for trust while refusing to give me the truth. And the worst part, I didn't know if I was more angry or more afraid. She didn't try to explain again that morning. Didn't chase me down with excuses, didn't beg. She gave me space, which somehow felt worse than if she had fought me. Around noon, I heard the front door open. I thought she had left, but then her voice came from the hallway. Evan? I didn't answer right away. She stepped into the kitchen. Her eyes were red. Not from last night. From crying. I think I need to show you, she said quietly. I looked up at her. That was new. Not tell you, show you. What does that mean? I asked. She swallowed. Come with me tonight. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. Back there, she nodded. To that house? Yes. Every instinct in me screamed not to go, not to step further into whatever this was, but another part. The part that still loved her. Needed to know. Fine, I said. She let out a shaky breath, like she'd been holding it all day. But if I'm going, I added, there are no more secrets. She nodded. I know. That night felt longer than any I could remember. We barely spoke, moved around each other like two people trying not to break something fragile. At 12:30 a.m., she stood by the door. Waiting. You ready? She asked. No, but I nodded anyway. We stepped outside together. It felt strange walking beside her like this, not following, not hiding, just walking. The same path she had taken alone the past few nights. Only now I could see it clearly. She didn't rush this time, didn't hide. When we reached the house, my chest tightened again, the same one. Small, worn. The porch light flickered slightly as we approached. Rachel knocked. Twice. Pause. Then once more. The door opened. The man I had seen before stood there. Now I could see him clearly. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Unshaven. Tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep. His eyes flicked to me. Confused. Guarded. Rachel, he said. It's okay, she replied gently. This is my husband. That word husband landed heavier than it should have. The man hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. The house smelled faintly of medicine, and something else, something heavier. The lights were dim, furniture sparse. But that's not what hit me. It was the sound, a soft, uneven breathing, coming from the next room. I froze. Rachel didn't. She walked forward, motioning for me to follow. And then I saw her, A woman, lying in a hospital bed set up in the living room, thin, fragile, her skin pale against the white sheets. Machines surrounded her, quiet, steady. The sound I heard was her breathing. My chest tightened. "What is this?" I whispered. Rachel's voice softened in a way I hadn't heard in weeks. "Her name is Leela." I looked at her, then at the man standing behind us. "My sister," he said. Everything in me shifted. Rachel stepped closer to the bed, gently adjusting the blanket. "She's been sick for a long time," she said. "Terminal." The word hit hard. "She doesn't have much time left," Rachel continued. I looked at the man again. "Why are you here?" I asked. He hesitated, then said quietly, "Because I can't do this alone anymore." I frowned. Rachel turned to me. "I met him a few weeks ago," she said, "at the hospital." The pieces started coming together, slowly. "He was trying to get help," she continued. "Caregivers, support, anything. But it's expensive," the man added, "and the system doesn't make it easy." I looked around again, at the equipment, at the exhaustion in his eyes. "She needs someone at night," Rachel said, "to monitor her, to help if something happens." My stomach dropped. "You've been coming here," I said slowly. She nodded. "Every night." Silence filled the room, because suddenly, everything I thought I knew, everything I feared, collapsed into something else entirely. "You were helping?" I asked. Her eyes met mine. "Yes." I ran a hand over my face, because I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Yes, but also something else, something heavier. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. Her expression broke. "Because I knew what you'd say." That stung. What would I say? That it's too much, she replied. That it's not our responsibility. That it's not practical. Her words weren't angry. They were certain, and that hurt more. "I didn't want you to talk me out of it," she added. I looked at her, really looked at her. This wasn't about sneaking out, or lies. This was about something deeper, about who she was, and who she felt she had to be around me. "I thought I was protecting us," I said quietly. "I know," she replied, "but I needed to do this anyway." I glanced at the woman in the bed. Leela, her chest rose slowly, falling again, fragile. "Temporary. How long?" I asked. "Since the first night," Rachel said. "Since Tom saw you." She nodded. A strange, almost ironic thought crossed my mind. The thing that made me question my wife was the same thing that showed me who she really was. Someone who cared enough to lose sleep, to carry a burden that wasn't hers, and hide it, because she thought I wouldn't understand. That realization hit harder than anything else, not what she did, but why she felt she had to hide it. I let out a long breath. "I should have been there," I said. Rachel's eyes filled. "I didn't give you the chance," she replied. We stood there in silence. The machines hummed softly, Leela's breathing steady, but fragile. Then the man spoke. "You don't have to stay," he said. "I didn't mean to cause problems." I looked at him, then at Rachel, then back at Leela. "No," I said. I pulled up a chair. "I think I do." Rachel's breath caught, and for the first time since this started, there was no distance between us, just something quiet, honest, real, because sometimes the truth doesn't just reveal what someone was hiding, it reveals what you failed to see. The things that matter most, I stayed that night, not out of obligation, not because I felt guilty, but because, for the first time in weeks, I understood what was really at stake, and it wasn't just my pride, or my suspicions, or even my marriage. It was something quieter, more human. Rachel moved around the room with a calm I hadn't seen in a long time. Not rushed, not anxious, just present. She checked Lila's vitals, adjusted a tube, wiped her forehead gently like it was second nature. The man Daniel, I learned, sat across from me, his elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on his sister like he was afraid she might disappear if he blinked. "Thank you," he said at one point, his voice low, "for coming, for not making this harder." I nodded, unsure what to say, because the truth was I had made it harder, just not out loud. The room fell into a rhythm, machines humming softly, the quiet rise and fall of Leela's breathing, Rachel moving with quiet purpose, and me, watching, learning, trying to understand a version of my wife I hadn't fully seen before. Around 3 a.m., Rachel sat beside me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "You're quiet," she said softly. "I'm thinking," I replied. "About." I looked at her, really looked. "You," I said. She held my gaze, something uncertain flickering in her eyes. "I thought I knew you," I continued, "but I don't think I saw all of you." Her expression softened. "I didn't show you everything," she admitted. "Why not?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because I didn't think you'd accept it." That landed deeper than anything else she had said. Not anger, not betrayal, Just distance I didn't realize I'd created. I would have tried, I said. She gave a small, sad smile. I know that now. A pause. But I didn't know it then. The honesty between us felt fragile, but real. Around 4:12 a.m., everything changed. Lila's breathing shifted. It was subtle at first, then not. Rachel stood instantly. Daniel, he was already on his feet. The machine started beeping softly, then louder. My chest tightened. What's happening? I asked. Rachel didn't look at me. She's declining. Daniel moved closer, grabbing his sister's hand. Leela, hey, I'm here. His voice cracked. Rachel adjusted something quickly, her movements precise but urgent. Should we call someone? I asked. We already know, Daniel said, his voice breaking. They told us this would happen. The room felt smaller, heavier. Leela's breaths grew shallower, slower. Rachel leaned close to her. You're not alone, she whispered. I stood there, frozen, watching something I wasn't prepared to witness, a life slipping away. And then, silence. The machines went still. Daniel let out a sound I will never forget, not loud, not dramatic, just broken. He rested his forehead against her hand, his shoulders shaking. Rachel closed her eyes for a moment, just a moment, then gently reached out and turned off the machine. The room went quiet. Completely. I swallowed hard, my chest tight, because in that silence, everything felt different. All the questions, all the suspicion, all the anger, it all felt small. Rachel stepped back slowly, her hands trembling just slightly. Daniel looked at her, tears running freely now. Thank you, he said. She shook her head, but didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. We stayed for a while after. Not talking much, just being there. When we finally stepped outside, the sky was beginning to lighten, that soft gray before sunrise. Rachel wrapped her arms around herself, exhaling slowly. She's gone, she said quietly. I nodded. There was a long silence between us. Then I said something I hadn't expected. I almost destroyed this. She looked at me. Our marriage, I added, because I didn't understand. Her expression softened. You were trying to make sense of something you didn't know, she said. That's not an excuse. No, she agreed, but it's human. We stood there, side by side, not touching, but not distant either. I thought you were leaving me, I admitted. She looked down. I thought you wouldn't support me, she said. We both let out a small, almost ironic breath. Two people, both wrong, in different ways. I should have trusted you more, I said. I should have told you the truth, she replied. The honesty didn't fix everything, but it mattered. I don't want us to go back to how we were, I said after a moment. She frowned slightly. What do you mean? I continued, I don't want a version of us where you feel like you have to hide parts of yourself, or where I think I have all the answers. She held my gaze. Then what do you want? I thought about it. About everything. I want us to be honest, I said, even when it's uncomfortable, even when we don't agree. A small pause. And I want to learn how to stand beside you, not in front of you. Her eyes filled slightly. That sounds better, she said softly. I nodded. It is. The sun began to rise behind us, casting a soft light over the street. For the first time in days. Maybe long, I didn't feel like something was slipping away. I felt like something was starting. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Rachel reached for my hand. I didn't hesitate, and as we stood there, watching the morning come in, I realized something I hadn't understood before. Trust isn't just about believing someone won't hurt you. It's about believing they'll let you see them, even in the parts that are messy, complicated, hard to explain. And love, real love, is choosing to stay, to listen, to understand, even when the truth isn't what you expected. We didn't say anything else. We just stood there, together. And this time, there were no shadows between us.